laugh. At least I got on pants.
You're ahead of the game with pants on. It's a good look.
I'm going to say hello to everybody. Oh, there she is.
Hi, Kat. Hi, Kat.
Hello, Kat.
Hi, Kat.
Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Look what's happening. Okay, so what can I say about this show? One thing, we're going to do introductions, and we're going to have a storyteller. We're going to switch things up a little bit. If you're watching this after the fact, feel free to push yourself, scrub through, go to the storytellers you like. We're going to move the lesson a little further on this time, and we're just workshopping it out. I'm going to kick it over to Mac to do the formal introductions.
Formal introductions. Well, welcome everybody to the Workshop show. The guy with the real microphone and the headphones on is Daniel Andrew Boyd, who's both the producer and my co-host in this show. Let me tell you a little bit about how this is going to shake out tonight. Oh, wait, Dan, you should introduce yourself too.
I am Daniel Andrew Boyd. As he said, this over to this side, wait, there we go. This side is Mac, and he is a lover of stories and an excellent storyteller. You're going to find out today because it's his turn to do a story.
Great. Right off the bat, we're going to have the crew introduce themselves, and they're going to do that. And Kat, welcome. This includes you as well. We're going to use a short prompt. One poem or song or saying I keep close to my heart is. And you can say a little bit about why that particular thing is close to your heart. We invite you, if you're in the chat, to go ahead, or watching the show, to go ahead and respond to that prompt as well. One poem, song, or saying I keep close to my heart is. Then you're going to hear two stories. One from our guest teller, Kat Dean, welcome. And tonight, the other one from me, one of the crew members. And after the story, we will be invited by the teller to give feedback, which are comments, suggestions, questions about the story. And it's at that point that, working with the teller, that the real magic of Workshop begins. Because we are going to ask the teller to use that feedback in their own way, it's their story, in their own voice, to retell that story again. So you'll be right in the inside of the creative process, between the listeners and the audience giving feedback and the teller telling. What do I forget at this time?
Mac, I think right about now is when we normally forget to let everybody know that there's a critiquing process here, and it is not about the person, it's about the piece when we give our feedback, and we are all friends. We're very comfortable with sharing that feedback with one another. So no worries. Hopefully folks at home too, you will share your feedback. And that's all.
Great, thanks, Kay. One last piece is right at the end of the show. There's another little bit of workshop magic, and that's that one of the crew members will tell one of the stories they heard in their own voice and in their own way. And we'll talk more about why we go ahead and do that. Okay, Dan, it's back to you. How do you want to start from here?
I think now the time is for us to just do a little introductions of ourselves, say our name, and answer the question.
Yeah, right. Let's just go. I'm just going to jump in. How about that? Just jump in with your responses to the prompt.
Okay, so the story or the poem that I read when I was very little and stuck with me for my whole life was There once was a girl with a curl in the middle of her forehead, and when she was good, she was very, very good. But when she was bad, she was horrid. And unfortunately, I took that straight to heart. And so when I was good, I was very, very good. But when I'm bad, well, you can ask my brothers. I'm horrid.
Just jump in. Kat, you jump in too, whenever you're ready.
So I don't know where I heard it, but someone once told me, wherever you go, there you are. And it's a little silly, but it always reminds me that after all, I am stuck with myself and I have to make it work. And there is no escape. So
I was actually going to say that because that's actually a quote that it is my reminder that, it's like that, it's just one little place in time. But there's another one that I've always, that kind of is a big one to me, is that you can't outrun your problems because no matter where you go, you take you with you. And I've proved that.
I'll jump in. There,
Go
there
ahead.
is somebody. Dun dun dun. We're getting echo off of someone randomly. I think it might be you, Susan. I don't know. Hey, DJ Boyd is in the Twitch channel. I am going to say that mine is there's a song that I reference in my stories all the time. I steal lines from it, and I don't fully know why, but it's called "Goddamn the Sun," and it's about this torrid love affair, and everybody dies, and the one guy left standing is crying in a beer mug saying, "God damn the sun, God damn any light that shines on this world of shadow." And I'm just like, there's sometimes when I'm really depressed where I'm like, that's how I feel.
On the flip side of that, Dan, there's a gospel song glorifying God that I usually keep close to me. Even though, like, I don't necessarily have a religion, but gospel music moves me. And I have to try to sing it, so bear with me. It's called Going Up Yonder. And it goes, if anybody asked you where I am going, soon, I'm going up yonder, going up yonder. I'm going up yonder to be with my Lord. And that's the song. And somebody in the comments on YouTube where I was watching that video recently put like, that's everybody's grandma's homegoing song. And I was like, that's also true. My granny, stay prayed up. It's going to work out.
That was great.
TJ, can you jump in?
Yeah. So I was trying to look up the actual poem itself, but it's a young lady by the name of Portia O who does a really good poem about capitalism, and I don't have any quotes. So I am going to actually link it in the Twitch chat.
All right. Nice going, TJ. Well, listen, for me, it's a little esoteric here. There's a Buddhist, I think it's a Buddhist or a Zen saying, and it goes like this. When the pickpocket meets the saint, all he sees are pockets. And the reason that feels important to me is I think it's really easy for us to just see people for what we can get from them. And it might be just the barista and a cup of coffee, but they just might be a saint. You never know when you're meeting a saint. So anyway, that's mine. And I say it way too many times to people, Have you heard?
No, that's great.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
There's a question I want to throw out to the people in chat. Do you think that you've ever met a saint? Is there anybody you've ever met who you're like, that person is like otherworldly? That person's a saint. You just get that feeling. Kay is saying yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. All right. We are going to transition here. Susan said that she also knows somebody. We're going to transition here to straight into stories. That's a little different for us. Usually we do the lesson up top, but we're going to do stories first and do a little bit of feedback. Then we're going to do the lesson, and that will give the person some time to take in that feedback. This is just a thing that we're trying out for the first time. So, Kat, do you feel ready to go first?
Yeah.
Sweet.
All right.
Now let me see if I can get you. Bum 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 bum. Here's the button. There we go.
Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, we're all ready.
Oh, okay. I was waiting. Okay. All right. So I'm getting dressed to go out to dinner, and I'm dressing up super nice. I'm wearing my fanciest dress that I actually went out and bought for this occasion, and I'm wearing makeup, which I don't usually do, and I've curled my hair, which I actually went out and bought a curling iron for just this occasion. And I'm on my way to a very fancy restaurant to meet my husband. The kind of restaurant, you know, like with the white tablecloths and the candlelight and the mood music and the waiters who know what kind of wine you want to drink, even though you have no freaking clue what kind of wine you want to drink. And this is an important evening. My husband wants to talk to me about coming home. See, we've been separated for several months, and he wants to meet me at this nice restaurant to try and convince me and let him come home. He says he misses and loves his wife, and he misses and loves his 2 daughters. And so I get to the restaurant, and there he is in his suit and tie. And for a minute, we just giggle together because we are not the suit and tie, fancy dress people. You know, we're the black t-shirt, ripped jeans people. And we feel like we're kind of playing a role, which is exciting and fun. And we're having a good time. And he lays out his plan to be the best husband in the whole world. Yeah. See, he's going to start doing the chores around the house. And he's going to sometimes watch the girls so I can go out. And he's going to get a job. I mean, a real job. This is, you know, the kind that has a paycheck that comes every week, and he puts it right in the bank account and pays bills with it. That kind of job. Now, this sounds like a pretty enticing husband, and is absolutely not the kind of husband he's ever been in our entire marriage, which for the most part is actually fine. You know, we spent most of our marriage until we had kids, you know, riding a motorcycle around upstate New York and spending most of our nights in bars and clubs and in the music scene and just kind of living as kids. And that was great. That was fun. We bonded over being children together until we were older than most children. And I had my 2 daughters. And I decided it was time to sort of grow up. I'm, you know, nothing too serious, but, you know, live in one place for a while and pay bills. You know, pick the kids up after school and do their homework with them type of thing. And he's telling me he plans to be that kind of husband. Right. I mean, do you throw away a marriage over just disagreements? He wants to know. I can see by looking at him that he's feeling pretty confident how this is going, you know, because we've smiled, we've laughed, and we haven't fought. Now that's a big sign that something's going great for him, because normally we would have been in a huge argument by now, and you know, the kind that people turn to look to see what they're seeing, what they're hearing, and we haven't. I haven't even interrupted him, not even one time. And he leans forward to me And he gives me that big blue-eyed smile, the kind that's been charming me since high school. And he says one word. He says, "Well," and I don't say anything right away. I just sit there and smile back at him for just a moment. Then I push my plate away. It had the steak and lobster, the most expensive thing on the menu, even though I actually am allergic to lobster. But I wanted to order the most expensive thing on the menu. And I don't say anything either. I just smile at him for a moment and I say, "I know about Michelle." And I take an envelope out of my purse and slide it across the table to him, the envelope containing the divorce papers. And then I get up and I walk out the door.
That's awesome. Let me.
Oh, I'm trying to, yeah, there.
Yeah, that was great. That was right around 4 minutes.
Yeah. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. Maybe it's me. I'm gonna kick it to Mac to start us off.
So, thanks, Dan. So, Kat, how are you feeling about that telling? Now that you
Oh, about the telling?
Yeah, the telling. The telling the story.
It was kind of improvising and winging it. So normally I would have had a better grip on the story so that I could kind of sink into it and not feel like I'm worried about anything. And that gives you a little more freedom to not feel like you're trying to remember things. So, I mean,
Okay. And what kind of feedback would you like? Any particular aspects about the story that you'd like feedback on?
I'm cool with anything somebody wants to offer. And my feelings are not easily hurt, so people don't have to feel like they have to.
Well, I'm going to start off and say that I thought the setting was really clear. That opening up, I liked seeing you getting ready, and the anticipation was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, you had really great specific things in your story. I could have used a little bit more, like when you talked about putting on makeup, maybe what you were putting on, that kind of thing. But you are really good with the details. And I really liked, too, the way you would move in when you really were confiding something or in terms of drama. And you had me hooked all the way through the story. That wasn't a problem for me. I felt like I knew what was going on. I felt like you led me right through the story. So I think, I feel like that really, you did that just really well. It really worked well, is a good way to put it.
TJ said that he didn't see it coming. So this is a question to the people who are in chat right now, and you can just throw it into the chat. This sort of story hinges on the surprise. And were you surprised? When did you get that feeling? I threw in there, a little, oh no, sort of as soon as she was like, this is a sign it's going well. That's when the tension filled in for me. But what about everybody else in the crew?
Yeah, I agree, Dan. Do you want to go, Noah?
Oh no! Yeah, I was surprised. I did not see it coming. I knew something
Thank you for
had to be coming, but I did not know how it was going to end.
Yeah, we knew something was coming, but not that. It was like you see something, but then it's a lot bigger than what you thought it'd be. So I'll give you kudos for that. Yeah.
And you did give us a little hint when you talked about not liking lobster, but you ordered it.
Yeah.
That was really cool. That was like, oh, something's not right here. Yeah. Yeah.
I will say I I definitely do like the setup how you did details, leaning in and everything. I do feel like all of the information, the entire story was front loaded. So I know you're fairly new at storytelling and everything, and this was a story that you were winging. So you did pretty good for that. I personally would have liked to seen more of the like thoughts during dinner, more of like that walking off what happened. Because I know you didn't just hand them paperwork and walk away and nothing happened. There was no conversation. Something happened. There was a thought process there. There's something that was in your head. And the point of this is to get that out and to convey to people how you feel about that. So I would like to have seen more of that.
Yeah, I'm with TJ. I would also love to hear that part too. Like, even I love the and I walk away, even if you added something like with a smirk on my face, or like I can feel his eyes on my back, or anything where it's like, hey, because clearly you stuck it to him. I also just want to chime in with everyone else that you bought a curling iron particularly for this event, as the audience were thinking, oh, this is great. Like, it's going to be the reunion that he hopes for. It's going to work out. And then it's like, I just ordered the most expensive thing on the menu. I'm allergic to lobster. I was like, oh, here we go. Can you tell me the name of the person who, kind of messed it all up again? So I know about
Michelle.
And you dropped her name, Michelle. I know about Michelle. I thought that was great. I know about Michelle. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Whatever you thought was going on, we as the audience knew it was a wrap. Great job.
Yeah.
So, Kat, I have just a couple things that I think I would have liked to heard more about. One is about, you said his blue eyes that you'd looked at ever since high school. So it would be kind of cool to hear about how you got together, because that's a very particular kind of relationship. And also about how old the girls were at this time. I kept wanting to kind of visualize the girls with ages. The other thing is how you might want to, if you want to think about the ending a little bit, it's a really abrupt ending. And I like what Kay said too, like what was going on inside you as you walked out, or if you wanted to, giving us a little more, kind of letting us come in from a landing. Like, do you regret that now? Is it one of the best decisions you ever made? Those kinds of things. Take us into kind of closer to the present, because it's a real climax. And then let us kind of go a little further with you down the road as one idea.
Yeah, I've got a question about that. Let me ask this though: is anybody else hearing echo when they're talking? No. All right, it's something with my computer on my end. So when I talk, I'll just take my earphones off. How does that idea resonate with you? Because like right now it is like a punch ending. And so could you just talk a little bit about the answer to that question? Like, I think you really did just get up and leave.
I did.
Yeah. Did you feel like there was there any aftermath, or did the divorce go pretty smooth after that? What were the moments of walking out?
I mean, I literally did just walk out and left him sitting there with that waiter and all. I mean, and he didn't follow me.
Yeah.
So, because I guess he sort of figured the deal was done. There was nothing to follow me for. But I'm not sure. I think I might try to add more, but I'm not sure more is part of this story after, because the story is about him in that, and there was no story of him in that after that.
Yeah. So I think what the people are pointing out is can be, I think there might be a way to get what they're in asking for front loaded before the last line. And I think that answers that question. You know, it could be as simple as a line of just being like, it was over.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something along the lines of, this dinner went really well for me. It didn't go how he planned, but I left feeling pretty triumphant. I was like, you know, because part of the reason I dressed up so much is that he needed to know, you're losing something pretty amazing, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, not just the punk chick that you've been all this, but I'm also I'm all of it, and you blew it. And so I did show up looking as best I could. And so when I left, I was feeling pretty triumphant. I mean, he was completely defeated. His goal was completely thwarted, but mine was attained perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the punch ending. I thought that was good. But that part where you said why you wanted to dress up so well and curl your hair and all that you just said now, I would like that in the story, to like know why you're doing all that, but you don't have to say, you know, because I want him to know what he's missing. Just like, I want him to see, you know, who I am. Like, I'm awesome. Like, just kind of maybe throw that part in when you're getting all dolled up.
I like that. Yeah, I do.
Kat,
Yeah.
I love this, and just what you just added about, this is the reason why I wanted to look this way, you know, to make sure he knew what he was leaving behind. I just want to ask, would you be willing to put anything in the story about Michelle? Like, once you say he thinks it's going well, I bought the steak and the lobster because it's the most expensive thing, but I just slide the envelope and I say, I know about Michelle. Would you be willing to say at that point, and here's a little bit, like, in your mind, here's a little bit about Michelle, and then after you give the information about Michelle, it's like, I walked out? Because I'm curious at this point. I know some people decide to reconcile in a relationship when people step outside of it, and some people decide not to reconcile. It's totally very personal. Would you be willing to say, like, here's something about Michelle, and this is part of the reason why I'm definitely not coming back? Or it, you know, just like that echo, because I'm wondering to myself, why was this the break? He's willing to do all these things he's never done in the relationship that are theoretically helpful, but not with Michelle.
You're asking me a question. You know, here's the thing: is if I were telling you my thoughts about Michelle, she freed me. She gave me the reason to throw that all away. So to me, I wasn't mad at her. She saved me.
Wow.
So, you know, it was kind of one of those things. I could have slogged away trying to make this really tough marriage work, but she gave me this, hey, you know, and he was actively, it wasn't a past thing. He was actively seeing her
Right.
at that time. So she was not his, like, a girl he cheated on with in the past. He was telling her that they were a couple and trying to tell me we were a couple. So that was really, so there's no thought of reconciliation, but I also thought it wasn't some bitch I hated. No, I was like, you know, he's yours. Thank you for this. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So that's very interesting, just to know that the way you presented it in the story was like, the cheating was that's it. That's the reason I'm gone. But you just explained it like, thanks, Michelle. You can have him. I'm out of here. So if you were doing the retelling, I would maybe put that in there somewhere, some idea that, like, and I'm sure he thought that she's the reason why, you know, and the fact that he didn't know the real reason why is why I was walking away, you know?
Yeah. I'm trying to think how to add that without making it. One thing I didn't want to do is I wanted it to have a punch and then not like a It's like if somebody told you a joke, it was funny, but then they started explaining, well, it's funny, and it stops being funny while they, you know what I mean? Sometimes
I
if
hear
you
you.
go further than your punchline,
Mhm.
you remove the power from your punchline.
I
And
hear
that's
you.
why I'm thinking, how would I do that? It would have to be really 1 or 2 sentences. It would have to be really concise to not take away from the punch, I think. But I have to think of how to do that because that's a good point.
I hear you.
Because
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I wasn't walking away sad and defeated. I was walking away freed.
Yes. I want us, I think that we know that, knowing that like you just slid the papers across and walked out. But if you said that you were free, I would just love to hear that. And again, that contrast between what he might think is going on, I know about Michelle, versus the real reason why you're walking away.
Yeah.
If there's anything that you could front load about that without giving it away, that he's saying he'll be a good husband in all these other ways, and you sort of hinted at it. You were like, I don't know if I really needed him to do all that. I was covering that. I don't know if I needed him to do that, but there is something that I needed him to do. Like, I don't know if you just allude to something earlier. So he thinks it's about Michelle, and you're like, joke's on you.
Okay, real quick, because some people just jumped in just to fill them in on what's going on. This was a quick 4-minute short story that Kat's working on, and it's about her handing the divorce papers to her husband. And he thought that he had come up with the perfect plan to keep the relationship together, and it blew up in his face. And that's the basic gist of this story. And the big thing, yeah, Nestor, she'll be doing another telling of the story. The big question that people have come up with is it's got a good like punch, kind of like a joke ending, in the way that it hits you. And some of the listeners have thought there wasn't enough closure there for them. They were left with a couple of questions. And so we're thinking about what are the ways to answer those while leaving that hard-hitting ending, if that's possible.
Yeah, I thought you gave us plenty. And once we know what's going on, I think the only piece that we didn't have is that this is a story of triumph for you. This is a triumphant moment. And maybe it's just enough to sort of make that clear. One sentence, some cliche, I never look back would be the cliche, right?
Yeah.
And then I think for me at least, all the little puzzle pieces that you set up would like lock together, and I would understand, what had just happened. And it could be really short. But yeah, I think that's, for me, that would do it. Just one sentence that lets me know it was a triumph.
I was thinking, like, in terms of that, something along the lines of, after saying I slid the divorce papers across the table for him and I got up to leave, Michelle has freed me. I'm free.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that would do it for me. And then I think we all were not 100% sure where you were and how things played out for you. And a line like that does tell us that you're happy with what happened.
Right.
And then it makes sense why you dressed up. You had a plan. This was not, this didn't happen by accident. This was all premeditated.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this? One, I have a question. I had seen you work on this one other time.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to get the papers in the front of the story.
Yeah. And I actually tried to do that, and nothing felt right with it.
Okay.
Nothing felt. It was like I liked the idea, but somehow I couldn't do it in a way that felt like it was, like it fit. It felt like I was trying to contrive something that wasn't fitting. So,
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the idea a lot. I just somehow couldn't make it work.
Yeah, a little bit. I want to try it.
I can try it.
Just to see how it looks. So yeah, our plan originally was to do this show to like a little bit different, but I feel like our focus here is on the two ends of the story, the real opening and what we're going to put in there and the last lines. And I think it would do us well to just play with those for a little bit. And so I think that's what we're going to try to do. And so with the last line, what do you think about? I think that there's that sense of triumph and being freed. I think the question is, should that be before you slide the papers or after? And I think we should just try it both ways and see how it sounds.
Okay. Because I was pretty firm on after, that's what I thought. But let me try. How would I do it before? Because I say I know about Michelle before I move the papers to him. Before I hand the papers to him.
Yeah. So I think before this is my thought, and we're just like playing back and forth, right? So give pushback or like play with the wording and see what you think. If it's before, I think it's what are the lines? Do you have it written down?
No.
Okay. So the lines before are this sort of like, it's going really well. He thinks he's doing great.
What if?
And
what
then
if
you could
after
say,
that, go ahead. Well, what if after that moment where he says, "Well," that's where you can, I know. He says, "Well," and then you can say, "I know this is over," and then,
Yeah. What's that's the thing to play with. Like, what's the wording there? He thinks, then you can make it that this is where the change happens. This is where we know that it's a triumph and this dude is a trap. Right? And you can get all that into this. By saying that, like, but I have, I have the way out of this.
What about that thing with the blue eyes? I mean, that's where he says, "Well," and then you said, "But he's not gonna get me with those blue eyes of his anymore." I have the key to my freedom, or whatever it is.
Yeah, in my purse, I have the key to my freedom. I've been freed by, and I've been freed by a woman named Michelle. And I pull out the paper and I tell him, I know about the other woman.
I'm trying to envision it. I'm not rejecting or
Yeah.
Trying to envision how that would work. And I'm also not trying to be stubborn. I'm always willing to fiddle with stuff. Somehow, I guess I'm sort of, maybe the reason I'm stuck on saying it the way I did is because it was part of my intention with the way I structure it. I'm sort of letting the audience be almost like they're beside him, going through the process with him. And so the moment I say, I know about Michelle, that's when you're hearing it and that's where he's hearing it. And when I slide the divorce papers, that's where you're seeing it and that's where he's seeing it. All of that up to then has been sort of me mirroring back to you how he thinks things are going. And that's sort of why I structured it. Because if I say anything about Michelle before I say to him, then I will take away that element of you being there beside him.
Yeah. Do you want us with you when you're walking out, or do you want us left stunned? Because I think right now it works that way. I felt like I'm watching you walk out.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I definitely.
No, that's a cool effect. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
With this other version, I think you would would have that up until this point, and then by saying he's a trap, then I think we would go with you, and all of a sudden we'd be like, oh no, we're on her side, right? And so it would be a different effect.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we would be walking out with you. Ha! All of a sudden, I think we would be able to make that switch as the audience. We'd be like, we punked him. But right now, it feels like, oh, I got punked. I did something, a little bit.
Yeah. I think it would. I mean, I totally think that the recommendation to let you kind of follow and come out with me. I can see totally how that could work. How I could say, this dinner went wonderfully well. This dinner went perfectly.
Yeah.
And
so it's not good or bad, right? It's just a different
right.
thing.
And
We're not like
let you walk outside with me into the cold night where I'm thinking, it's cold, it's beautiful, the stars are out, and I'm fucking free.
Nestor.
Word the language if you don't like it.
Yeah. Nestor threw out in chat that it sounds like you guys were playing poker and he didn't realize you had the winning hand. It's like one of those moments. It very much felt like that, like a Texas Hold'em. You're down to 2 people. Okay, so this is where I'm gonna change gears and say, let's try just this last line, but do it with it after, because I think that'll be the easiest way to go about it.
Okay, I'm not sure what you're asking me to do, but
so just say, and then I have like 1 or 2 lines after you slide the papers and walk out.
Okay, all right.
Of triumph, whatever that means to you. She's freed me, and I have won, or what, you got to figure out the language, but just do those.
All right.
From his yeah.
Okay. Let me think. Let me kind of get the gears running. All right. All right. I lean in and I say, I know about Michelle. And I slide the envelope containing the divorce papers across the table to him. And I get up and walk out and leave him alone. I'm free. It's a beautiful cold night outside and the stars are shining and I'm free. Michelle has set me free.
Oh yeah. Yeah. How did that feel?
I mean, that feels very positive. I mean, I would obviously have to fiddle with it a little bit. That's just a first thoughts in my head. But that sounds like it could still leave you your surprise and leave you with a little bit feeling like you came out, you were with him and now you're with me.
Yes. Yeah. I think hearing that, I feel like that worked. And that settled me a little bit more than just the punchline. It's sort of, it's that thing where you take care of the audience.
I like that.
You don't just, leave them with shock. You sort of ease them out of the story. Is usually a best practice. Well, how did other people feel?
Yeah, I liked it. It gave me exactly what I was looking for. So, and the stars in the sky, the cold, crisp night, they work great there.
Yeah. Then the other thing that we could play around with is getting the papers into that front without feeling cliched. And so, okay, so to clarify what this suggestion is, this is a Matthew Dix trick that he talks about in his book Storyworthy, and it's basically to increase surprise. You want to put in details of the surprise early into the story where people don't see it.
Yeah.
And don't realize that it's an important detail. So you want to have a string of details, one of which is important. But it seems superfluous at the time. That way, when it comes back at the end, the audience has this moment of, oh, she did tell us about that. And it creates this sort of like inside joke, and you got to be the detective and figure it out. So I think we could use the divorce papers to do this without calling them divorce papers. And what's the trick here?
Well, let's see.
So in this version, I felt like you weren't rushing. Right? In the first one that I heard you say, you were rushing. You're like, I'm always rushing around, and I'm rushing to this this date. But this version, I felt like you were very calm, and you were just getting ready.
So, Kat, I have one idea.
Yeah.
And that's that you could talk about that as you're getting yourself all dressed up, that you have a surprise for him or a couple of surprises from him. And I think I would assume that has something to do with the way you're dressed and whatever, but that would be some way to do what Dan is talking about.
Okay. I'm processing all this. Like, how would I incorporate that? I'm listening and processing.
Bum, 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 bum. Yeah. So the way I'm seeing it as a suggestion is you would just have a line that's like, as I'm headed out the door, I'm making sure I have everything that I need for today and whatever might come. And I check my hair. The curl is great. I have my purse. It's got the papers from the lawyer, so I'm not going to forget those. I've got the dress. It looks freaking fantastic. My shoes are great. No, I'm set.
Okay. I'm going to think. I will think how to add that in. See if it works.
I think the papers from the lawyer is just a
You think
little
it's
too much.
obvious?
Yeah,
too
that's a
obvious.
little too much. But just like the whole thing that Danny said, and everything's in my purse or something. Like just a little hint.
How about my keys, my purse, my envelope, I've got everything. I can try.
Yeah.
I can try that.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's subtle. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. You're gonna take some time to coalesce this and think about it, and I'm going to go into today's lesson. And when we come out of the lesson, you'll do your second telling of the story.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you for playing with us today. Chun, 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 chun. Let me pop up big. I am out of focus. Let me see if I can reach over here and fix it. Autofocus. That seems better to me.
Before you do,
Yep.
Nestor had a suggestion.
I saw that.
And he said, can
Yeah.
you say it's a present? Which is a good point. Instead of envelope. People worry about, think about, I can't see that.
No, that's what I'm checking because I might write on it for my lesson today. Yeah, call it a present. Kat, you've got time to think about it and see what works and what doesn't. Okay, so last week we talked about David Sedaris's masterclass. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. I love entrepreneurs. I like guys who oh man, I was supposed to look up the name of the one. I'm really into it. Who? Let me Google it. Yeah, there it is. So like Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, who are the other ones? I think Simon Sinek is one. But there's who's the biggest one? Does anybody in chat know who I'm trying to? Tony Robbins. That's who I'm trying to think of. Tony Robbins. It's all these guys who don't produce anything except for inspirational speeches about how to be an entrepreneur. They don't like make any companies. They don't do anything. But they have gotten famous telling people how to be good at building a company. But the only company they build is like the self-help industry. So I love these guys. Simon Sinek is one of them. And he's got a great 14-minute TEDx talk, and I'm going to break that down for you. And I hit it a little bit last week. And so for those who are here, it's just a little reminder of that. So his big point, he's got these books of Finding Your Why. It's all about why, the story of why, Sell It with Why, things like that. And his big idea, which I think is pretty good, is that most people, when they're trying to sell stuff, they have a product and they're like, look at this product. It's really cool. It does these things. You should love this product. Buy this thing. And he says it misses the why of why you created the product in the first place. And so if you start with that and reverse the order and you say, you know what, I saw this problem in the world and I didn't know how to fix it. And then I thought, I'll build this product to fix it. And this is how the product works. Look at this product. Do you want to solve this problem? Buy this product. It's a very truncated version of this, but it is way more easier to sell something. You can just see it, right? And you know it. Like, you see commercials like this all the time. Here's this gadget. It does these cool things. Buy it. And then sometimes you see commercials where they say, here's the problem that I saw. This is how I was going to solve it. This is a product that fixes it. Buy this product. And it's way more compelling. It creates a story around why you built the thing and how it's useful. And we want to know those whys first. The other thing about this is it misses the sort of the deeper how, the very minutia of how things work. You don't get from these stories. And I'm bringing this up. I'm bringing this up because in these master classes that we've been taking, and I think, oh yeah, Tunji threw out the link, that in the master classes, these guys aren't teachers. They're people who have done this stuff, and there is a lot of explaining it in sort of the wrong order and having trouble explaining the how. They'll be like, this is what I do. It works. And it makes a lot of sense, but they don't walk you through in the 6 hours how they apply it or how you could apply it. So that's just something to think about when you're picking these up. You're going to have to do the dedicated practice on your own to figure out the how. There's lots of good what information, what you should do. You know, when somebody says show, don't tell, that's a great thing to say, and everybody says it. But learning how to do it takes a dedicated practice. And those are the two sort of guiding stars of our method of storytelling that we're always preaching. And the number one is, you don't have to be an expert to do this. You don't have to want to win a moth. You don't have to want to do some competition. You don't have to get published. Sharing your story is a good in and of itself. Having a daily writing practice, you will have benefits from just doing that. And it doesn't need some big reason. Just do it. Just share your stories. You're good enough as it is. And the number two thing is, dedicated practice will make you better. If you're interested in getting better, dedicated practice is the way to do it. And we do it through this community, coming in weekly, hanging out, building upon this 5L1K method that, we push out. But you can build these communities yourself. You can jump into ours. If you want to get better, practice in this way where you're dissecting, you're shooting ideas off of each other. It's not rote and writ, this is the way to do it. You're trying to find your own voice by working on it over and over again. So something that's in David Sedaris's voice that's unique to him is to get himself to the place where he's dedicated to spending 4 to 8 hours a day writing. He sort of guilt trips himself. And if this is effective for you, I say go for it. And what he talks about is, for him, the best writing he does is when it's hard to get out. And not only the best, but the most unique. And this is why he's a draft monster, and he does drafts over and over again, because he finds the minutia of moving these sentences around and creating new structures. You can't get the good that comes from that in any other way. You have to be a craftsman with your short story to get that level of goodness, to get to a point where every sentence, every comma is a choice that you've made. You've got to try other choices. And that is just an extra level. As you get better, they come quicker, but you always have to ask these questions and work on them, so on and so forth. So, like, one of the things he says in his masterclass is, like, if he misses a day, which he almost never does, he feels like he blew it because he can't get that story back. Meanwhile, there are these times where writing comes easy and it just flows out of you. And people talk about it as a flow state when you're writing. A lot of times runners will have a runner's high. That's a similar thing. If you're an athlete, I'll ask people in chat. There's people in chat right now. Have you ever heard of that? Either runner's high or flow state? Is that something you're familiar with? It's basically a time where it's almost like your subconscious takes over, the world parts away, and all you're doing is the one thing that you want to be doing, and it just flows out of you. And it can be sports, it can be conversations, it can be all these different things. And there's ways to get into that. But from David Sedaris's perspective, those times are going to come. And the stuff that comes from that is going to come forth out of you no matter what. The things that are only going to come once in a lifetime, those are in those crafting spaces. So some of your best work comes from sitting down and struggling with that blank page, struggling with the fifth draft. Yeah. Hi, Mr. Weil. That's when this best stuff comes out of you. It's not that runner's high. It's not these euphoric moments that we strive to make more regularly. It's in these times where you're struggling and you're making the muscles work. a bunch of the guys talked about always figuring out story. We always be thinking about story. We do Story Luck Study Buddy amongst ourselves, where we work on doing one story every day, just like a little one. And part of that process is this idea of, while you're going throughout your day, you are constantly thinking, how can I narrativize this? How do I turn this into a 3-act structure? How do I turn this into something interesting that I can tell someone else and empower them or entertain them or whatever? In the course with Steve Martin, he talked about it this way. He's like, get your funniest friend and talk to him for 2 hours about the minutia of jokes, and just sit there and talk to him. And then when you're done with the 2 hours, do it for 4, and then do that every day for the rest of your life, and spend the time you're not with him thinking about jokes that you can tell him when you go hang out with him, and do that for a couple of years, and then you'll be good. And he just talked about how when he had odd jobs and things like that, his whole brain power was thinking about jokes and thinking about what is funny, what isn't funny. And you can use all these downtimes for this mini lecture series that we do weekly. That's sort of how I do it. Anytime I'm outside, I'm plugged in to a lesson or a podcast so that I can regurgitate it to you guys and apply it to this Story Luck style. There's all these different ways to be constantly thinking about it. One of the ways that David Sedaris goes about it, beyond simply thinking in terms of story all the time, is that he tries to pull stories out of people so that he can hear them. And any interaction that he has with somebody who you would think would be a how's the weather sort of person, you know, whether it's a sales clerk or a neighbor or your dog walker or the person who antagonizes you, he wants to sort of go for the jugular of the story as soon as possible. And so he has like a list of things that he's interested in, and maybe he'll turn them into an essay one day. And so he'll ask people things like, have you ever run for office? When's the last time you went to the doctor? What's the best doctor experience you ever had? And all these various things. There's a clip of him asking a man if he'd ever eaten a horse, and would he? What's the weirdest thing that he ever ate? And in that clip, it doesn't go anywhere. The guy's just like, oh, that's too weird. No. But that's the sort of dedication to the process that these people who have huge amounts of success put into it. You make it into an internal thing where you're constantly working on it, and you get partners and friends who are into that process with you. I know Kat because we hang out in a story swap once or twice a week. And we're just always thinking and talking about stories. And that is the end of today's lesson. And we're going to go back to Kat and see if she's up for telling that story one more time.
All right, let's see what I can do. You ready?
100% ready.
Awesome. Okay. I'm getting ready to go, and I really want to look nice tonight. So I put on my fanciest dress, which I bought for this occasion, and I'm putting on makeup with the eyelashes and the whole thing. And I've curled my hair with a curling iron that I bought for just this occasion. because my husband wants to take me to a fancy restaurant for dinner to talk. It's one of those kinds of restaurants that has the, the white tablecloths and the candles and the mood music and the waiter who knows what kind of wine goes with what when you have no freaking idea. And I want to look good. I want to look really good tonight. So I'm ready to go. And I've got my keys. Make sure I bring the envelope that I wanted to give him. And I meet him there. And there he is. He's waiting in his best suit. Which we laughed for a minute because we are not the suit and fancy dress kind of people. We're the black t-shirts, torn jeans, and boots kind of people. And so we feel like we're playing dress up, and it's fun. We're having a nice time. And he's called me here because he would like to come home. Yeah, we have been separated for about 6 months, and he wants to come home. He says he misses his wife, who he loves. He misses his 2 little girls, 6 and 3, who he loves very much. And he wants to give me the case for why he should come home. And it's a pretty good case he's laying out here. He's gonna start cleaning. He's gonna clean around the house. Yeah. And he's gonna watch the girls sometimes so I can go out with my friends. And this is the best of all, he's going to get a job. A real job, the kind that has a paycheck that you can put in a bank account and pay bills with. Yeah. Now, this is a pretty enticing sounding guy he's describing here, and it's definitely not who he has been all these years, which is fine. To be honest with you, you know what? We spent the huge majority of our marriage just being 2 great big children together, riding a motorcycle around upstate New York and skipping from job to job and state to state and hanging out in clubs and bars almost every single night. That's how we've lived. And that's how I've liked to live with him. That's what drew us together. But I've got these 2 little girls. And that made me feel like, it's time to grow up. Not all the way. I mean, I don't want to polish marble countertops for the rest of my life. I just, it's time to, help kids with homework and pay bills, that kind of thing. And he's telling me that's who he wants to be. Well, you don't just throw away a marriage, do you? That's what he's telling me. You don't just throw away a marriage. And he thinks this is going really well. He's looking pretty confident. And I understand why, because we have not argued once tonight. That's nice. I mean, usually we would have had an all-out argument over something by now. That's what we do. But I have not even interrupted him. And finally, he leans forward and gives me that great blue-eyed smile that I fell in love with in high school. Yeah, just that sparkle and that shine that made me think this was a charismatic guy. And he says one word, well. Now, I don't answer right away. I don't. I just smile back at him. And I push my plate away from me. It was the steak and lobster, the most expensive thing on the menu. Although I'm actually allergic to lobster, but I wanted the most expensive thing on the menu. And I smile back at him and I say, I know about Michelle. And I take the envelope out of my purse, the gift I had for him, and I slide it across the table to him, the divorce papers. And I walk out of the restaurant into the cold night air, the gloriously cold night air, with the stars shining above me. Michelle had set me free. I was free. Yeah, this dinner had gone really, really well.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I think that worked. How are other people? How did you feel about it?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I liked it. It's fun. It's fun to play around with something that you just, yeah. It's fun to play around with.
Yeah. Both of the tellings were really good. I think this is a great story, and people.
Story Jack says he's never going to be that guy. Correct. He's never going to be that guy.
Yeah. Okay, so to keep things moving along, I'm going to throw it straight to Mac. Are you ready?
I'm ready, Dan. Sure. I'm glad to be telling the story. I've tried to tell this at times, and I get stuck with it and whatever. And I'm really looking forward to feedback tonight. It's the spring of 1967. The Vietnam War is heating up. Protests are erupting in the cities, and I'm getting ready to graduate from college. After much soul searching, I decide I just won't let myself get drafted, partly because I don't want to get killed, but also because I believe in what we're doing to the people in Vietnam is just wrong. So I have three options after I graduate: go to jail, flee to Canada, or go to graduate school, which would provide an exemption. And just before the fall semester begins, Antioch College lets me and my two buddies from where I go to school into their Masters of Arts in Teaching program. They were kind of like a refuge for people like me. And as a new educational experiment, all 26 of us master degree students will be placed in the Greene County public school system as teachers. So I'm sitting on the top of my desk in the front of the classroom. My friend David Baker and I are the whole social studies department in the brand new Green Joint Vocational School in Xenia, Ohio. We're about a month into our first semester. For both of us, it's our absolutely first teaching gig. My students, juniors and seniors, are scattered in front of me. The 16-millimeter projector in the middle of the room is ready to go. When we first arrived at the school, the vocational teachers were griping that the vocational school was being used as a dumping ground, that the kids were mostly rejects from their high schools, the uncool kids, the misfits, the problem students. They suggested we need to make these kids get on with the program, learn basic academic and technical skills, and become productive workers in the blue-collar economy. Well, these were just the kind of kids Baker and I wanted to work with. We wanted them to share their lives, their challenges. We asked questions, listened to their arguments. We took their thinking seriously. We encouraged them to speak up. In the classroom, we gave them as much freedom as we could. We let them bring their records to play on an old phonograph I brought in. Yeah, phonograph. We let them set up the classroom as they saw fit. And hell, if they wanted to sit on their new desks instead of in their chairs, that was okay by me. And hey, if you don't like what's going on in this class, go down to Baker's class and see what he's doing. The brand new principal of the Jolly Green Joint, that's what the kids call the vocational school, was a recently retired naval commander. Very first time being a principal. Nice guy, very much in command, and he wanted everything done by the book. Soon we got pressure to make our class content more vocationally focused, more industrial. So we finally agreed to show a movie from the Ford Motor Company. The movie started with a pile of brown iron ore and showed steel being made and then formed into parts, and the parts being put on the car, and the new gleaming Ford rolling off the assembly line at the end. After watching it, one of the boys said, "Let's run it backwards." You know, you could do that on the old movie projectors. As the car went back up the assembly line, they blasted a soundtrack by the Animals. We gotta get out of this place. If it's the last thing we ever do. The workers were stripping the parts off the gleaming Ford to where there's a better life. And the car finally turned into a pile of brown iron for me and you. In the middle of October, David and I told the kids in our classrooms we were going to go to the march on the Pentagon in Washington to protest the Vietnam War. Most of the kids challenged our decision. My classroom came alive with arguments and discussions. These kids from blue-collar families were angry with us, calling us unpatriotic at best, at worst, flag burners, communists, and traitors. We left the school early on a Friday afternoon before the march. In the parking lot, I opened the door to Baker's old white Ford Comet. And there on the driver's seat was a bandana. I opened the bandana. Inside was a pile of small bills and change. The kids knew we were planning to hitchhike to the march, and they were really worried about us, and they'd taken up a collection. Later that fall, at the Jolly Green Joint, the scuttlebutt was that our days were numbered. We're all going to get fired. Led by Becky, a bold and well-organized girl in bookkeeping, the students held a sit-in protest in the hallway. It took a lot of guts. I heard that in the mechanical drawing class, a teacher, a big guy, warned the students, if you walk out to join the sit-in, you'll get a 0 for the week. One boy walked out, another girl walked out, and pretty soon the class was empty. In a last-ditch attempt to save our jobs for us, about 25 students attended the school board meeting. The board members didn't allow the students to speak. They quickly voted on the agenda item like number 17, and we were fired. But at the end of the meeting, the students blocked the doors, told the board members, before you leave, you need to listen to us. They eloquently defended us, and then they let the board members file out. I wonder how those kids from the Jolly Green Joint are doing now, because Baker and I stood up for a radical and maybe naive approach to teaching. The students lost us and we lost them. I wonder if it might have been better to go along with the administrator's requests so we could have stayed for a full year to support these kids. But I also wonder, do some of them now in their 60s think of Baker and me in that unusual and turbulent semester? I hope that we enriched and empowered a few of them in some small way, and that they carried us in their hearts as they moved through school and out into their worlds and worked out their lives in their own unique ways. Thank you.
Mac, I'm going to jump in real quick just because
Sure.
I want to say thank you. You're an awesome storyteller, and I am so glad that you decided to share this one with us tonight. I used to teach in Anacostia High School with another young woman when I was at Howard University, and the people who got us into this teaching position, it was Amnesty International. So they wanted us to teach a human rights curriculum, and we went into an American history classroom where the teacher was very kind to let us in. And like, we're teaching Malcolm X speeches, the ballot or the bullet. We don't know how kids are going to respond, because Anacostia at this time is a place where people are regularly shot and killed, and there are weapons in the school. And people looked at us like, what are you doing even going into the school? Like, Amnesty International was like, y'all will be fine, right? And we're like, these are our kids. Of course we'll be fine. We didn't know what they were going to say or do when we were in the space, and they welcomed us in. And it sounds like your kids welcomed you in with open arms. When you had the part in your story about them being blue collar kids that took up a collection for you, so you like looked on the seat of the car and there was like money for you to go to Washington, I was like, ah, that's amazing. So I just think that you had amazing touches to let us know kind of the pulse of where the kids were coming from. They played the slides backwards and played the music, and that was their protest. But then they also obviously had some leanings that made them feel skeptical about like pushing back against the whole system, the way y'all seem to be pushing back against the whole system. So I like that. I think that you showed great moments when they were in solidarity with you, and they were not necessarily with you the whole time. So we didn't know when the hearing came up with the school board, like what was going to go down. For them to defend you, it was like, oh, yes, like that is the ending that I would want to this story, because obviously you never know what's going to happen. You don't know if it would have been better for them to file in line with the Navy administrator, or, you know, to have that spunk and that spirit that they had. But the fact that y'all reached them, obviously, because they were able to say why you were making a difference. That's incredible. So I think that you did a great job illustrating the story, and like, again, the little touches, the money on the seat. Well done.
Thanks, Kay. Okay, one of my problems with this story is it feels like it's 60s. I need to give so much background, and I'd like to go scene to scene, and I got a couple scenes. And then I'm not really quite sure about the ending either. You know, I'm sort of struggling with that as well. And I'd like it to be shorter. I'd like to be able to take some stuff out, but I keep feeling like, how could you possibly understand this unless I even explain more, you know? But thank you.
Where are we? Yeah. How did you? Our first go-to question. How do you feel about it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's really. I know it landed with UK. I don't know if it really lands. If you understand the stakes for me in this, and should I tell you more about Baker? I bring him up. Baker, my wingman, my other teacher in the program.
Yeah,
could you follow it? Did it mean something? You know, did it mean something to you, or what would you suggest I take out or change or add to?
Yeah.
If you wanted to give any insight about the Vietnam War, why you had stepped away from going into service and decided to serve instead as a teacher, I personally have a background as to why that might have been an issue for you. So if you can throw one sentence out there, like you mentioned the fact that the kids are blue collar. So if you want to talk at all about like the Vietnamese people and the Viet Cong, and any ideas about like people trying to, fight for themselves, be self-reliant, or however you might want to talk about that conflict. I see a parallel between the kids coming from blue collar backgrounds and being sort of just like everyday people, and what was happening with the Vietnamese, and how we're trying as a nation, as the United States, to influence what was happening with them. So it's like Ford is this big overarching power, and the United States is this big overarching power. And how are these forces trying to impact people's lives? And why did you feel the need to step away from that? I think you could do that in one sentence, like here's Ford Motor Company and the blue collar kids, and here's the United States and Vietnam. And then people kind of have an idea, like, I didn't think this was my role to participate in this way, so I went to this other role instead. That is kind of weird to think that you can summarize the Vietnam War in one sentence, but it's you, Mac.
Well, thank you, though. Thanks.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw out, if you have any thoughts, Kat, feel free to jump in.
Yeah.
Susan, did you have anything that you wanted
Yeah.
to throw out?
Yeah, I was just wondering, you're losing your job, and was that just like something that you were so confident that you'd get another job, or you didn't need to have a job, or was there any angst in that for you? Like, did you ever think, hey, maybe I should try not to lose my job, or should I network with the board better to not lose my job? Like, was there any of that in play in your mind?
Yeah, I think maybe that wasn't clear. I was a student and I was teaching. I wasn't getting paid to teach. I was paid to go to school. And this was unusual, is that we had no experience teaching, but we're in this program that just put us in a teacher role because we all had undergraduate degrees, and this was a master's program. So in a sense, and I didn't know if I knew at the time, but losing that job, I would still be in the program and still be eligible not to be drafted. Do you know what I mean? Eligible for my exemption. So it's a little different than having a job.
But there are no consequences for you being fired? Like,
No,
Seems-
the school, it's another thing I could have put in, is so much here. The school was totally behind us. And I remember a meeting with the superintendent where the guy running the programs, Ben, he said, they have a right to academic freedom. They can teach the way they want, and you have a right to fire them.
Interesting.
That's great.
That's a good line, maybe.
I'm gonna throw this to Noah. You know, this is a story of trying to get out of the draft. And if you get out of it, you know, they pull somebody else who isn't you. There's these parallels all throughout this. Did any of them cause you stress?
Cause me stress.
Yeah.
I was just so much focused on the teaching because I'm kind of a teacher too, and I do not have I don't have a master's of teaching or anything like that because I'm a sub. So it was a very similar situation a few years ago for me where I'm just thrown into a classroom. My experience was completely different from yours, Mac, because I basically fell in line and just perpetuated the system as it is. But yeah, for me, the most interesting thing was that you were able to establish this rapport with your students and really make a connection with them, and even to the point where they're backing you up and taking risks to try to change the world. So for me, that was the most interesting part of the story, and that engaged me the most. You said you wanted to make it shorter, and for me, I felt like I didn't really need to know how you got into that classroom. Just sort of that you were thrown in, right? And that would be for me, for what I find interesting about the story. That could go, and it would still be the same story.
Yeah.
Okay. Please.
I don't have a strong feeling about what the right answer to this is, but I did sort of wonder that, like, what does this story look like without the backdrop at all? Right? You're kind of like the 60s, we're trying to explain all this stuff, but what if it is just about, I'm teaching these kids, I have this moment with them. What does the story look like without any background information at all? Probably worse, okay. But I'm interested in seeing it. Is that a hand?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, no, I mean, I do have stuff to say, but not
okay.
necessarily. I was just fiddling with my hands.
Well, I've thrown it to you and put you on the spot.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I thought I love the story. I just that it's a beautiful story. If I were to say what more would I ask of it, I would like more of you and how you are feeling and how you're processing things. So you're describing a lot of things really well. You're telling me a lot about what happened. But I would like, when your students stood up, you had to have felt something, something big, or when they fired you. So you really don't give me a whole lot of you and your process of the story. And another thing I thought was, because you have so much great stuff in the story, I think probably every storyteller who exists has a story with so much great stuff that you love all of them, and you don't know which beautiful parts of it to pull out to make it more focused on exactly what you want us to know from the story. So, for example, if your story is a relationship with these kids, you may not need to tell us as much about your process of trying to dodge the war, or if the story is about your process as a student learning how to teach. So I hope I'm making that clear. You know, that the story could be, it's like, what do they call it? Kill your children. You have something really beautiful, but if it doesn't,
Kill your baby.
yeah,
kill your
darling.
Exactly. Kill your darlings. Yeah, something doesn't quite really make what you want to say juicier. You know, kill it. Like the car, that whole bit, the car that was being taken apart. It was beautiful, but did it? I mean, if your story was about dodging the war, did it work? You know, did it add to it? Those are the kinds of thoughts. But I would like more of you, because I'm thinking a bunch of times I thought that's got to have hurt, or that's got to have felt so beautiful, but you didn't tell me that.
Okay, I think maybe, Kat, you sort of gave me the way to really work this story. You know, I think you're right. That's what's missing, and I'd be glad to try and throw that in. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like you have enough that you could give us?
I think I'm going to try. You know, I'll just give it a shot, and we'll just see what happens. Could be a train wreck. Could be all right.
Yeah.
All right.
We've had a small rotation of people in, so I'm just going to explain the show one more time. That we tell the story, get feedback, and then we immediately iterate on the story to see what that's like. So Mac just told us a great story about being a teacher in a tumultuous 60s, and he's going to give us another try at that story right now. Already.
Okay. It's 1967. I've got my first teaching assignment. I'm in the Green Joint Vocational School. The kids who've come there call it the Jolly Green Joint. And they know in their hearts that they've sort of been dumped from their regular high schools. They're the kind of kids that teachers don't particularly like. They cause problems. They're outspoken. They don't go along with the plan. They don't like to sit in their seats all the time. They don't like hall passes. And they've come here and they have some vocational school during the day, like drafting or auto mechanics or whatever. And then I've got them for social studies. And I was really excited to get these kinds of kids, the kids who push against school, because I was pushing against a lot of systems on my own. So, and I didn't really know how this was going to go. I really had to kind of play it by ear. They gave us a curriculum, but it was really awful. So I just made it up with my pal, David Baker, who was teaching the other section of social studies. And we did a number of things. We both really wanted this class, the social studies class, to be about the kids and what they thought and what was important to them. And how they could argue their point of view, and that we would be just like facilitators in that. We wouldn't try to put anything on them. And so it actually was going a lot better than I expected. And it's partly because we just wanted to eliminate the bullshit. You know, if the kids wanted to sit up on their desk and have the conversation instead of in their chair, that was fine with me. And if a kid sort of was like looking bored or something, I'd say to him, look, you don't have to stay in the classroom. Go down and see what Baker's doing in his classroom. We taught at the same time. And they took us up on that without a hall pass and stuff. Well, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I don't know, the guy who was the principal of the school had just retired as a Navy commander, and he'd never been a principal before. Now, he was a really nice guy. But he was a let's do it by the book kind of guy. And obviously we were not doing it by the book. So the administration started to put like pressure on us, you know, like what they need to learn about being part of industry and whatever. And we actually were given this film made by Ford Motor Company. And we had a projector in the classroom, an old 16 millimeter, well, it was a new 16 millimeter projector at that time. And so we sat down to watch the movie. I mean, kids were spread out all over the room, you know, and had the record player had brought in from home. So, because we liked them to play their own songs and tell us what they meant to them, and that kind of stuff. We wanted them to bring themselves into the classroom. And so this movie starts out, and what you see is this big pile of iron ore, and then you see the iron ore being dumped into that into like hoppers and stuff, and then all of a sudden, you get sheet metal coming out, and then pretty soon you have the car going down the assembly line and the sheet metal being put in, and pretty soon the gleaming Ford drives off the assembly line. It's like, wow, So we wanted to see what they thought, and one of the kids said, "Hey, let's play the movie backwards." And you could do that on those old projectors. So started to play the movie backwards. And one of the kids stopped and said, "Wait, let's put some music to it." So they picked out the Animals. And so as the car is going back down the assembly line and the people are grabbing, the workers are grabbing the pieces off, and the whole car is being pulled apart. The song went, "We gotta get out of this place. If it's the last thing we ever do, we gotta get out of this place to where there's a better life for me and you." And at the end, you just see this big pile of iron ore that the car has been transformed into. These kids had parents who worked in steel mills, in car factories. They knew what it was like, So, but we were on a collision course with the administration. Obviously, that was not their idea of how we were going to use this movie and how we were going to teach our classes. And pretty soon the word got out. I'll just throw this in. So we had probably our most vigorous discussions when Baker and I both said we were going to go to the Pentagon, march on the Pentagon, and to protest the Vietnam War. And our students argued with us, and they pushed back, and they said we were traitors, and we were unpatriotic, and that we were communists. And this is a lot of what they heard at home. And Baker we would just have those conversations with them in our classroom, and we'd say what we were doing.
How did it feel?
Really,
When a student would call you a traitor, how would that feel?
It was great. It was like, yeah, now we could talk about this stuff, because a lot of it was them trying to understand us and us trying to understand them. That was really what it was about. But they were really bitter about this one. And so he left school early on a Friday to drive his old Comet up to the Ford Comet up to the interstate, and we're going to start hitchhiking. And I opened the door of the car, and there in the driver's seat was this bandana. And in the bandana were these small bills and change. And they had taken up a collection for us because they were worried about us. It was like they were saying, we don't agree with you, but we believe you should have the right to do what you think is right, And I just felt so good. I was so touched by that. So anyway, but the word we got back from the march, and the word was out that we'd been to that and in the whole school. And we got the word that, the word was that we're going to be fired. It's, oh, God damn, we thought it was kind of inevitable, maybe, but we had a meeting with the school superintendent, and our guy who ran the program, Ben Williams, his name was, he said, "Look," to the superintendent, "these boys have a right to teach what they want to teach in the way they want to teach. That's academic freedom. And you have the right to fire them." So like the die was cast. But the students were having none of it. They got a petition together and they sent it to the principal. Then, much to our surprise and my surprise, I was so surprised, they did just what they thought we were really, that we shouldn't be doing. They had a sit-in. And in one of the classrooms, we heard the teacher said, "You walk out of here and you get a 0 for the week." And it was like in a movie, where one kid walks out and then another one. And then pretty soon the classroom was empty and they were all sitting down in the hallway in this demonstration. I was really proud of them. I didn't want to encourage them. I didn't want to make it anything about me, but I was really proud of what they were doing. And so stunned that they were doing just what they said they didn't want us to do in terms of going to the protest. And then I mean, we knew the writing was on the wall. We were going to get fired, but the kids were not going to stop fighting. And they went to the school board meeting. I was there, and discussion came up, and people were, about this thing on the agenda, and the kids wanted to speak up, and the school board would not let them talk, wouldn't let them say anything. And they just sat there and watched this process and the vote go through Amendment 17 or whatever, Article 17, and we were fired officially. But then the school board got up at the end of the meeting and started to leave, and the students blocked the doors. And he said, look, you fired them, but you're going to listen to us. And they wouldn't let them leave. And they defended the way they were getting educated and what was happening with them just eloquently. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, they were going way beyond what we would have done. And then they allowed the school board to leave. So we got fired. We moved on. And, there's times I wonder, did we do the right thing? Should we have gone along more so we could have stuck with those kids for the full year instead of just part of a semester, And I had really gotten to love the kids and love the interactions we had, but we were cut off from them now. And, but I wonder, I look back on that time where the kids taught me so much about courage, about standing up, about breaking out of the mold and the expectations that people had for them. And I wonder, did they even think about David and I, Baker and I? Did they kind of think about that tumultuous year? Because I certainly think about them. And I'm hoping that maybe the chemistry that happened and the activism that happened served them well as they moved through life. And as they worked out their own unique relationship with the world and with others. That's it.
Thank you so much. That was good. I think Kat had it right. The more you, the better.
Thank you, Kat.
And I think that it highlights too really what it's about. And it's this journey that the kids go on that you get to witness, and the feelings that brings inside you, and that this moment for you of, the decision you made to go down there has these very interesting repercussions. But it's a beautiful way to tell sort of these kids' story and how the inspiration sort of snowballs into each other. Gotcha. Yeah, I am 100% sure those kids think about you. We have one more story for tonight. And before that happens, I'm going to say, if anybody has any comments that they want to say to us face to face, or have as a story that they want to tell, we're going to hang out in Discord after this, and come hang out with us, and we're around to listen to your stories. Who is taking over the next part? Susan is, and I will highlight you.
So the next part that we do, which we think is pretty unique, is that we let somebody on our panel retell one of the two stories that were told today. So it's unique in the fact that they kind of have to improv and just hear the story and redo it. And the storyteller, who's been working so hard on their story from their own perspective, gets to see the story from somebody else's perspective and decide whether they want to use any of that in their story when they retell it also. So we think it's cool and unique, and now we're going to do it for you.
All right. And then Kay is up as our last storyteller for today.
Hey, so I am super excited Kat and Mac, y'all gave me so much juicy material. Like, oh my goodness. Thank you very much. I am going to go ahead and do my best to reinterpret Kat's story. So that's where I'm going to go from here. So I am actually buzzing with energy at this point. At this point in the night, I already have my best dress on. I've got my lashes done. I went out and got a new curling iron and I have curled my hair to perfection. I'm feeling amazing, actually, and I'm looking even better. Thank you. I've got a gift from my hubby. I've got my keys. I've got my lipstick. Everything's in my purse. I'm finally ready to see him again. Now, he's been out of the house due to our constant disagreements. We really just can't even get a word in edgewise with one another. We we don't see eye to eye on hardly anything. But we're gonna see what we can do at this dinner. He's decided to take me to this fancy restaurant, and I am very excited about it. It's like a white tablecloth spot. It's got the sommelier with all of the recommendations that you can't pronounce on the menu. And when I get there, I see him in his suit and we both start laughing because I'm like dressed to the nines in my best dress. He's in his suit, but we're more like black t-shirt, ripped jeans, punk kids. So it's like, what are we even doing? But I guess we're both here. So we're going to see what we're doing. I am sitting across from him and this fancy white tablecloth and just staring into his familiar smiling blue eyes. I fell in love with him a long time ago in high school with those smiling blue eyes and like that playfulness and that light. And I know he's been hoping to find his way back into that energy that we had. What I didn't know was that he has a whole plan for how he wants to do this, for how he wants to rejoin our lives together. But he outlines this for me. So he's like, I'm going to do chores now. I'm going to watch the girls. I'll wash dishes. He tells me he's going to get a real job, like, the kind you can use to pay bills with, like a real job. And that is sort of surprising. And you know what? I haven't needed him to do these things. I've been the person who did these things for the most part. And what I really got from our relationship was that he was a kid with me. Like I got to be playful with him. He was playful with me. We were kids together since high school. We've been children at play together. And we would ride motorcycles and listen to live music and be in our favorite bars all up and down upstate New York. But now he's going to be this other kind of husband. And that's news to me. We haven't argued once tonight. Like I haven't talked over him. We've been cool. He says to me, like, you don't just throw away a marriage like this, do you? At this point, I guess he thinks everything is going well. And that's what he says to me. He says, well, and he stares at me from across the table with those like smiling blue eyes. I know he thinks everything is awesome. I bought the steak and lobster. I'm actually allergic to lobster. I bought the steak and lobster because it's the most expensive thing on the menu. And I lean in too. I stare into his smiling blue eyes and I tell him, I know about Michelle. Now, at this point, I don't have to look at his face. I know he's probably floored at this point, and I know that he probably doesn't know why. He probably thinks we're over because of her. But honestly, she freed me. Michelle freed me. So I grab the gift that I have for him out of my purse. I slide the divorce papers over across the table and I walk out. under the clear, welcoming, starry sky.
Boom. Oh. Da-da-da-da-da. Thank you so much. And that is our show. Bum bum bum. Everybody say goodbye. Thank you to those who hit like and subscribe and follow and all that. And in the next couple of minutes, we'll jump into the Discord. Thank you so much for coming, Mr. Wiley. Commander Root, you're always here. Thank you for being such a good guy. Alien Navigation is on our board, so thank you to him and the few people who I don't know. Also, thank you. And everybody say goodbye. Bye.
Hi, everybody. See you in
Thank you.
Discord.
Thanks, Pat.
Jump over to Discord.